I want to tell you something that might disturb you at first, but if you truly hear what I'm about to say, 2026 will become the year everything changes for you. Right now, at this very moment, you are speaking words that are building your future, and most of you have no idea that every single thing you say is an invisible instruction to the universe. You think words are just sounds that disappear into the air, but I'm here to tell you they are the most powerful creative force you possess, and you've been using this force against yourself. I've watched thousands of people stumble through life, wondering why nothing works, why doors stay closed, why love feels impossible, why money slips through their fingers like water. And when I look closely, I see the same pattern every single time. They are wonderful people with good hearts, but their words are drowning them. They wake up and say things like, "I'm so tired, I never have enough. This always happens to me. I'm not lucky like other people." And then they wonder why exhaustion follows them, why lack is their constant companion, why the same painful patterns repeat over and over. You must understand this. Your word is your wand. It is the instrument you use to shape the invisible substance all around you into the circumstances of your life. When you speak, you are not just describing reality, you are invoking it, commanding it, calling it forth from the realm of infinite possibility into physical form. The universe doesn't judge your words. It doesn't ask if you really meant them. It simply says yes to whatever you declare. It is the most obedient servant you could ever imagine, and it is listening to you right now, in this moment, waiting for your instructions. Most people are casting spells against themselves all day long and calling it casual conversation. They say, "I'm afraid this won't work out," and they are literally speaking a fierce spell into existence. They say, "I can't afford this," and they can't. Close the door to abundance with their own mouth. They say, "I always get sick in winter," and they are ordering illness like someone ordering from a menu. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is the mechanical operation of spiritual law, as reliable and unchangeable as gravity. And just as gravity works whether you understand it or not, whether you believe in it or not, this law works constantly. The difference is, gravity pulls you down automatically, but spiritual law lifts you up times when you cooperate with it. Asterisk. Most people stumble through life thinking they're victims of circumstance. They look at their bank account and feel despair. They look at their relationships and feel abandoned. They look at their opportunities and see only closed doors. And so they affirm lack, rejection, and limitation with every thought, every word, every worried conversation. I cannot tell you how many times someone has sat across from me and said, "But Florence, you don't understand my situation. It's different. It's worse. It's impossible." And every single time, I've had to gently explain, your situation isn't your problem. Your time's perception, times of your situation, is your problem. Your words, times about times, your situation, are creating more of the same situation. There was a woman who came to me drowning in debt, absolutely drowning. And the first words out of her mouth were, "I'll never get out of this hole. I'll be poor forever. Money just slips through my fingers." I stopped her right there. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked. "You've just spoken 3 curses over your finances in one breath. And you wonder why nothing changes?" She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "But it's true," she protested. "I times am times in debt. Do times have trouble with money?" "Yes," I said, "but by declaring it will times never times change. By claiming you'll times always times be poor, you're ordering the universe to make it permanent. You're a builder insisting the foundation stay cracked forever. Why would abundance come to someone who keeps announcing it never will?" We spent the next hour rewriting her spiritual vocabulary. Instead of, "I'll never have enough," she began to say, "Infinite supply is now manifesting in my life." Instead of, "Money slips through my fingers," she declared, "I am a perfect channel for divine abundance." Instead of, "I'll always be poor," she affirmed, "I am a magnet for prosperity in expected and unexpected ways." Did her debt disappear overnight? No, that's not how this works. But within 3 weeks, she received an unexpected tax refund. Within 2 months, she was offered a position with nearly double her previous salary. Within 6 months, the debt that had haunted her for years was manageable, then minimal, then gone. Magic? No. Mechanics. She stopped using her words to cement her prison walls. She started using them to build a doorway out. Every morning, she would stand in front of the mirror and speak to the woman looking back at her. Not affirmations copied from someone else's Instagram post. Not generic platitudes. Real words. True words. I am worthy of a partner who sees me. I am ready to receive love that doesn't require me to shrink. At first, her reflection seemed skeptical. Her own face didn't believe her. But she kept going. Day after day, the words felt like stones in her mouth at first, heavy and awkward. Then they began to feel like breath. Natural. Necessary. And here's what nobody tells you about changing your inner conversation. The universe doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't wait for you to be convinced. It responds to your words the moment you speak them with intention. Within 3 weeks, a friend invited her to a gathering she would normally have declined. She went. Within 6 weeks, she had a conversation with a man who actually listened, when she spoke about her work. Within 3 months, she was in a relationship that felt like coming home. But the relationship itself wasn't even the main miracle. The main miracle was who she had become in the process of calling it in. She had transformed from someone who begged for crumbs to someone who expected a feast. And that shift, that internal revolution, changed everything else in her life too. Her career, her friendships, the way she moved through the world. You see, when you change your words, you don't just change one area of your life. You change the foundation. And when the foundation shifts, every room in the house rearranges itself. Now, let me be clear about something. This isn't about pretending. This isn't about lying to yourself. When I say change your words, I don't mean paste a smile over your pain and declare everything is fine when it isn't. That's spiritual bypassing, and it's just another form of denial. What I'm talking about is deeper. I'm talking about shifting from describing your prison to declaring your freedom. There's a difference between I'm so alone and I'm preparing space for my person. One is a life sentence. The other is a reframe that opens the door. And here's the thing about reframes, they're not fake. They're actually truer than the complaint. Because when you say, I'm preparing space for my person, you're acknowledging reality. You are alone right now. Yes. But you're also actively moving towards something. You're not stuck. You're in transition. That's the difference between victim language and creator language. Now, let me be clear. I'm not asking you to gaslight yourself. If you're in pain, you're in pain. Honor that. Feel it. But don't worship it. Don't build an altar to your suffering and pray there 3 times a day. Because here's what I've seen happen. Over and over, the words you repeat become the walls you live inside. I knew a woman once who told me she couldn't find work. She'd say it to everyone, her friends, her family, strangers at the grocery store. There's just no work out there. Nobody's hiring. The economy is terrible. She had a whole script. And you know what? She was right. For her, there was no work. Because every time an opportunity appeared, she explained it away. That's not real work. That doesn't pay enough. That's beneath me. Her words had built a fortress, and she was locked inside it. Then one day, something shifted. She got tired of her own voice. She stopped announcing her unemployment and started saying something different. I'm between chapters. That's it, just a tiny shift. But it changed everything. Because between chapters implies movement. It implies a story that's still being written. And within 2 months, she had 3 offers. Not because the economy changed, because her frequency did. You see, the universe doesn't hear your complaints. It hears your declarations. It responds to the energy behind your words, not the content of your sob story. So, when you say, I never have enough money, the universe says, correct, you never have enough. Let me send you more experiences of not enough. It's not being cruel, it's being obedient. But when you say money flows to me easily and often, even if your bank account is laughing at you, you're planting a seed, you're issuing an invitation, you're opening a channel. And here's what most people don't understand. The universe doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, well, actually, based on your credit score. No. It simply reflects back what you've been declaring, consciously or unconsciously. You've been running around saying, I can't afford this. I never have enough. Rich people are greedy, and life says, Your wish is my command. You've been affirming lack so consistently that you've become a master manifester of exactly what you don't want. So let's flip the script. Literally, I want you to start speaking to your life the way you'd speak to a garden. You wouldn't stand over a rose bush and scream, "Why aren't you blooming, you useless plant?" You'd water it, give it sunlight, whisper encouragement, if you're into that sort of thing. Your financial life is no different. It needs tending. It needs the water of affirmation, the sunlight of gratitude, the fertilizer of expectation. Here's one of my favorite affirmations, and I want you to try it on. I am a magnet for money. Prosperity is drawn to me. Say it right now, out loud if you can. I'll wait. Did you feel that little flutter? That tiny voice that said, "Yeah, right?" That's your old pattern trying to survive. It knows that if you start speaking a new language, it's out of a job. But you don't need its permission. You're not asking your doubt if you can be prosperous. You're informing the universe of your new terms and conditions. And here's the thing about words: they don't just describe reality, they create it. Every great invention started as a sentence in someone's mind. Every relationship began with words. Every empire, every movement, every transformation, words first, manifestation second. So when you declare, "Unexpected money comes to me from unexpected sources," you're not lying, you're not faking it, you're prophesying. You're calling things that are not as though they are, and the universe, bless its obedient heart, scrambles to rearrange circumstances to match your decree. I've seen people turn their entire financial situation around, not by working harder, but by speaking differently. They stopped saying "I'm broke" and started saying, "I'm building wealth." They stopped complaining about bills and started blessing them as proof that they have services, shelter, electricity. The shift isn't just semantic, it's spiritual. When you bless your bills, you're acknowledging abundance, not lack. You're saying, "Look at all these wonderful things I have access to." And that vibration, that's the frequency wealth recognizes and responds to. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't fact check. If you consistently tell it, "Money flows to me easily," it will start finding evidence to support that statement. You'll notice opportunities you walked past before. You'll remember that friend who mentioned a side gig. You'll suddenly have an idea for something you could sell or create. The circumstances were always there, your awareness just wasn't tuned to that station. I remember working with a woman who was drowning in debt. Every conversation was about what she owed, what she couldn't afford, how trapped she felt. I told her, "For the next 30 days, you're not allowed to speak a word about debt. Instead, every time you think about money, you say, 'I am a clear channel for abundance. Money comes to me from expected and unexpected sources.'" She looked at me like I'd suggested she flap her arms and fly to the moon, but she was desperate enough to try. 3 weeks in, she called me, breathless. A former employer reached out about a freelance project, something that hadn't been available before. Her aunt mentioned an investment opportunity. She found a check she'd forgotten to cash from months prior. None of these things required her to be smarter or more capable. She was the same person, but her words had shifted her vibration, and the universe met her there. This is what most people miss. You don't affirm your way to wealth while secretly believing you're doomed. The words must be backed by feeling. When you say, "I am financially free," you need to feel the relief, the ease, the expansion in your chest. You need to taste it. Otherwise, you're just reciting empty syllables, and the universe knows the difference between a declaration and a wish. So start paying attention to the story you're telling. Is it a tragedy or a triumph? Because I promise you, whichever script you rehearse most often is the one that will premiere in your life. Your word is your wand. Use it wisely. Now, I want to address something that might be stirring in your mind right now. You might be thinking, "But what about all the terrible things I've already said? What about all the years I've spent claiming lack, rehearsing failure, declaring that nothing ever works out for me?" Listen carefully. The universe has no memory of your past mistakes. It only responds to your present word. You see, the law doesn't hold grudges. It doesn't keep a record of all the times you got it wrong. Every single moment is a new beginning. Every breath you take is an opportunity to speak a new word, to claim a new truth, to step into a new script. I've seen people who spent decades in the darkness of negative speech completely transform their lives in mere months once they understood this principle. The moment they began to speak differently, everything shifted. Not because the universe suddenly decided to be kind to them, but because they finally aligned their words with the truth of their divine inheritance. One woman came to me absolutely convinced she was destined to be alone. For years, she'd been saying, "All the good men are taken. Nobody wants a woman my age. I'm too set in my ways." And of course, her life reflected this perfectly. Every potential relationship dissolved before it began. When I taught her about the power of the word, she resisted. "But I'm just being realistic," she protested. And I said to her what I'm saying to you now. There's nothing realistic about denying your divine right to love, companionship, and joy. She began, tentatively at first, to speak new words. "My divine partner is being prepared for me right now. Love finds me easily and naturally. I am magnetic to the right relationship." She felt foolish saying these things, but she persisted. Within 3 months, she met a man at the most unexpected place, a hardware store, of all things. They've been married now for 7 years. She tells everyone it was a miracle, but it wasn't a miracle. It was the law, responding to her changed word. That's what most people miss. They pray once, speak their word once, and then spend the next 23 hours contradicting it. They say, "I am healed," and then tell 12 people how terrible they feel. They declare prosperity, then complain about bills all afternoon. Your word must become your atmosphere. Not just a sentence you speak, but the air you breathe. Every conversation, every thought, every reaction. I once knew a man who wanted to sell his business. He'd been trying for 2 years. Every meeting fell through. Every buyer backed out at the last moment. He came to me frustrated, defeated. I said, "What do you say when people ask about the sale?" He looked surprised. "I tell them the truth, that it's not selling, that the market is terrible, that no one wants it." "There's your problem," I told him. "You're making the present condition your truth. You're giving it power every time you speak." He started speaking differently. When people asked, he'd say calmly, "It's already sold to the right buyer." He stopped discussing the delays, stopped rehearsing the failures. He held that word like a seed in dark soil, protected, unwavered. 3 weeks later, a buyer appeared seemingly out of nowhere, offered full price. The sale went through without a single complication. Same business, same market, different word. You see, the universe doesn't hear your desperation. It doesn't respond to your urgency or your fear. It responds to your conviction, to the authority in your voice, to the consistency of your claim. When you waver, the universe wavers. When you doubt, the creative force pauses, confused by your mixed signals. But when you stand firm, when your word becomes unshakable, the entire invisible world moves to confirm it. This is not about pretending. This is not about denial. This is about choosing which reality you're feeding with your attention and your speech. Every word is a seed. You can plant worry or plant faith, complain or claim, rehearse the problem or declare the solution. Most people are master gardeners of misery. They water their fears daily with detailed descriptions. They fertilize their lack with constant discussion. Then they wonder why their garden blooms with exactly what they didn't want. The universe is a mirror, not a calculator. It doesn't respond to your desperation or your manipulation. It responds to your assumption. It reflects back the state you're broadcasting, not the words you're speaking. I've seen people pray for abundance while their entire body language screams poverty. They say affirmations about wealth while mentally calculating how they'll survive the month. They declare themselves healed while researching every possible complication of their condition. And they're confused when nothing changes. Here's what they don't understand. Manifestation isn't about convincing the universe. It's about convincing yourself so thoroughly that the universe has no choice but to reflect your conviction. When you truly know something is yours, you stop talking about it obsessively. You stop explaining it, defending it, or trying to make others believe it. You simply live from that assumption, naturally, effortlessly, without the frantic energy of someone trying to make something happen. Think about the things in your life you never worry about. Your next breath, the sunrise tomorrow, gravity holding you to the earth. You don't affirm these things. You don't visualize them. You don't create vision boards about them. You simply assume them, and they are. That's the energy of true faith. It's so certain it's boring. It's so established it doesn't need attention. It's so complete it requires no defense. But we've been taught to hustle for manifestation. We've been conditioned to believe that more effort equals more results. So we pile on more techniques, more methods, more spiritual work. Thinking volume will create velocity. The opposite is true. The more you do from a place of lack, the more lack you create. The more you try to force manifestation, the more you affirm it hasn't manifested yet. You're running on a treadmill, generating enormous effort while staying exactly where you are. This is why surrender works when striving fails. Not surrender as giving up, but surrender as giving over. Releasing the how, the when, the mechanism. Trusting that what's yours is already finding its way to you through channels you cannot see and need not understand. You know, I watch people white-knuckle their desires, gripping so tightly they squeeze all the life out of them. They make vision boards and stare at them until the images blur. They repeat affirmations with clenched jaws and furrowed brows, as if the intensity of their wanting could somehow force the universe's hand. But this isn't magnetic. This is repellent. The energy of desperation says, I don't have it. The energy of anxiety says, it's not coming. And the universe, ever the faithful mirror, can only reflect back to you the truth of what you're broadcasting. I've learned that there's a particular quality to the energy that manifests quickly and beautifully. It's the energy of expectation combined with peace. It's knowing so completely that something is yours that you can stop thinking about it. You can turn your attention elsewhere because the deal is already done. Think about ordering something online. Once you've clicked purchase, do you sit by your computer refreshing the shipping page every 5 minutes? Well, some of you do, but you know that doesn't make the package arrive any faster. Most of the time, you simply go about your life, confident the delivery is on its way. You might even forget about it until the doorbell rings. That's the energy I'm talking about. That's the frequency of manifestation. I learned this lesson deeply when I wanted to move to a new apartment. I had a specific vision. Light-filled rooms, a neighborhood with trees, a space that felt like a sanctuary. Instead of desperately scrolling through listings every hour, growing more anxious with each passing day, I stated my intention clearly, gave thanks for my perfect home, and then I went dancing. I took myself to a swing dancing class. I focused on the music, the movement, the joy of being in my body. I was so present, so alive in that moment, that I wasn't thinking about the apartment at all. 3 days later, a friend texted me about a place that had just become available. It checked every single box, and one I hadn't even thought to wish for. A balcony overlooking a garden. Was it coincidence that it came when I'd released my grip? I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I believe in the principle that what we need flows to us most easily when we're not blocking the channel with anxiety. This principle applies to everything. Jobs, relationships, opportunities, solutions to problems. When we're desperate and clutching, we become like someone drowning, flailing in panic, actually pushes away the very thing that could save us. But when we relax into trust, we float. Someone once told me they'd been searching for a romantic partner for years. They'd tried everything, apps, events, introductions through friends. The harder they searched, the more disappointed they became. Each failed date felt like evidence that love wasn't meant for them. Then one day, exhausted from the search, they simply stopped. Not because they gave up on love, but because they decided to genuinely enjoy their life as it was. They took up painting. They traveled alone. They invested in friendships. 3 months later, they met someone at a bookstore not while hunting, but while simply being themselves, absorbed in choosing a novel. That's how the universe works. It responds to our energy, not our effort. Now, I want to address something that might be stirring in your mind. You might be thinking, but doesn't this mean I should just sit around and do nothing? Doesn't faith require action? Absolutely not. There's a profound difference between inspired action and desperate action. Inspired action flows from trust. It feels light, right, almost inevitable. You're being pulled forward rather than pushing against resistance. Desperate action comes from fear. It feels heavy, forced, like you're trying to make something happen through sheer willpower alone. When you're in alignment with divine intelligence, the right actions reveal themselves naturally. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need the next right step. And when you're quiet enough, calm enough, trusting enough, that step illuminates itself. Then you take it. Then the next step appears. This is walking by faith, not stumbling in the dark, but following a path that lights up just ahead of your feet. I've watched people torture themselves trying to figure out the whole journey from beginning to end before they've even taken step one. They want the complete blueprint, the guaranteed outcome, the insurance policy against failure. And while they're demanding all this certainty, life is passing them by. Opportunities are knocking, and they're too paralyzed to answer the door. But here's what I've learned. The universe doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards movement. Even when that movement feels small, even when it seems insignificant, every step forward is met with new information, new resources, new doors opening that you couldn't even see from where you were standing before. I remember a woman who wanted to write a book. She had this incredible story inside her, something that could help thousands of people. But she kept saying, "I don't know how to get published. I don't know if anyone would read it. I don't know if I'm a good enough writer." Notice all those "I don't knows." She was trying to know the ending before she'd written the beginning. I told her, start writing. Just that. Don't worry about publishers or readers or whether it's perfect. Write the first chapter. And you know what happened? She wrote that chapter. Then another. And in the process of writing, she met someone at a coffee shop who knew an editor. That editor introduced her to an agent. One step revealed the next, but she couldn't see any of that from the starting line. This is how divine guidance actually operates. It doesn't give you a roadmap, it gives you a flashlight, and that flashlight illuminates just enough path for your next faithful step. Then when you take that step, the light moves forward with you. This is what walking by faith means in practical, everyday terms. Now here's what I want you to understand about this faithful walking. It doesn't mean you won't feel nervous. It doesn't mean your palms won't sweat when you're about to take that step. Faith isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of trust that's stronger than your fear. I remember a student who came to me absolutely paralyzed about leaving her secure job to start her own practice. She had the idea. She had the training. She had everything she needed except the certainty of how it would all turn out. "Florence," she said, "I need to know it's going to work before I do it." And I told her what I'm telling you now. That's not how the universe operates. The universe doesn't reward those who demand to see the entire staircase before taking the first step. It rewards those who take the first step, trusting that the staircase exists. She finally made her move. Not because she stopped being afraid, not because she suddenly had a crystal clear vision of the next 5 years, but because she recognized that staying in fear was making a choice too, the choice to let fear be her master instead of her companion on the journey. Within 6 months, her practice was thriving. But here's the beautiful part. She told me later that the success wasn't even the biggest reward. The biggest reward was discovering that she could trust herself to handle uncertainty, that she could walk into the unknown and not fall apart. That faith was something she possessed all along. This is the muscle you're building when you practice walking by faith. You're not just achieving external results, you're developing an internal strength that becomes unshakable. You're becoming someone who knows, deep in your bones, that you are divinely guided and divinely protected. And when you know this, really know it, everything changes. The things that used to terrify you become adventures. The obstacles that used to stop you become interesting puzzles. The uncertainty that used to paralyze you becomes a space of infinite possibility. I remember a man who came to me in absolute despair. He'd lost his business, his savings, his reputation. Everything he'd built over 20 years was gone. And he said to me, "I've tried positive thinking. I've tried affirmations. Nothing works." And I looked at him and said, "You haven't lost anything. You've been liberated." He thought I was cruel. But 6 months later, he returned. And he was a completely different man. Because in the emptiness of losing everything, he'd finally discovered what he actually wanted to create. Not what his father expected. Not what society approved. What his soul had been calling him toward all along. That business failure was the answer to a prayer he didn't know he was praying. This is the intelligence you're working with. This is the consciousness that's orchestrating your life. It doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't punish. It liberates you from the prisons you've built in your own mind. And here's what becomes absolutely magical. When you start operating from this understanding, when you make it the foundation of your life rather than an occasional practice, you become unstoppable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you know that everything, absolutely everything, is working in your favor. The relationship that ends is clearing space for the love you're actually meant to experience. The job you lose is redirecting you toward your true calling. The illness that strikes is teaching you to honor your body's wisdom. The failure that humbles you is preparing you for success you can actually handle. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a collaborator with life itself. And this is when miracles become your natural state. Not occasional surprises, but the consistent reality of your experience. Because you're no longer fighting against the current of universal intelligence. You're swimming with it. You're allowing it to carry you toward everything you've been seeking. The Word made flesh. Your consciousness becoming your reality. Your inner world creating your outer experience. This is your inheritance. This is your birthright. This is the power that's been waiting inside you all along.